Everybody, welcome back. We're talking new Marvel Snap patch notes. We're going to go through them, give my opinion as I go through it, and also talk about what might be the new meta. Well, actually, it's really not that new, to be honest with you. More on that as we go through it. So if you're not aware, they dropped the patch notes March 21st, and everyone was sort of expecting some nerfs. I will say up front, and we'll get into this, that some of these nerfs, I'm a little surprised with how hard they got hit. Again, the highlights, more tokens. Players who have not finished Series 3 will now earn 4 times more tokens. Yay, but again, as I've discussed in other videos, you're only gonna be able to use those on Series 4 and 5. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I just would like the right to choose. Shop update. Cards can now be acquired from the shop in 2 different sections. Now, if you're not aware, that free Series 3 card, it cycles. So you have to wait for a card that you want, and that waiting is every 8 hours. So you can't just go in there and pick it and be done. You've got to check it, see if it's the one you want. If not, you wait. Check 8 hours. Is it the one you want? Come back, etc. So expect that. Choose your card. That's what they talk about here. So Series Star cards have been separated in their own section. Use the tokens Series 4 and 5. Token Shop now contains only Series 4 and 5 and Ultimates. Again, we've been talking about that. General updates. We talked about this in another video where we dropped from Series 5 to Series 4 with Zabu, Sharon, Shauna, Dazzler, and Shadow King. Cards from Series 4 to Series 3, M'Baku, Orca, Atuma. When you tap on a card for more details during a match, the card detail screen now features artists, credits, and card mods. We got some new audio for Thanos, Nimrod, Master Mode, new location sounds for Morag and Bar Sinister, art and visual effects. Almighty Thanos now has visual effects along with the visual sounds. Great, cool. Now this is the part we all want to get to, the balance update. The unscheduled changes to Zabu and Silver Nerf made the metagame shifts for the last month more difficult for them to predict. Maybe, maybe not, who knows. They were unable to make timely adjustments for technical reasons. I'll give them that, no problem. In that time, Thanos became one of the most dominant decks yet. His weak matchups versus Zabu and Surfer had really been holding the Mad Titan back. Maybe. Shuri-based decks were another big winner here, and both of these archetypes have exceeded our tolerances for game balance. This patch adjustments are aimed at restoring order and weakening each of them. Now, I say that, but I'm also going to say that, and this is a little foreshadowing, I think the Shuri decks are going to still reign supreme here. They did a nerf to a card that was helpful in mitigating some of these Shuri decks that won't work anymore, or it won't work as well. I mean, you have to get really, really lucky, and we'll get to that. They're continuing to explore updates and improvements to both balance technology and our philosophy. All right, so first card update, Thanos from 6'11 to 6'10. Okay, I think this is completely irrelevant, honestly. I never felt like the Thanos deck was powerful because Thanos was 11 power, 21 power, or anything like that. I don't get it. I think it's fine, but I'm glad they left it above 9, so that's cool. Now this part, the Space Stone, you know, I talked about wanting to adjust the stones. There was a couple other ones I thought also should be adjusted, but this is arguably the strongest part of that deck. On the Space Stone, now instead of saying move on one card at this location, meaning when you played a Space Stone, what someone would do is then take Lockjaw and move it to a new location. So instead of moving a card at that location, next turn you can move one card to this location. You can still move Lockjaw. That's the thing. So the way this is going to play out is you're going to do Lockjaw on one lane, finish, play a Space Stone on another lane, and then move Lockjaw. Now, if you think about that though, then when you're going to do that? Lockjaw, you're not playing him until turn 3. Well, you can't play any stones with them on turn 3 because they now cost 1. Well, it's a little foreshadowing, which we're going to get to here in a second. So then on turn 4, you play all of your stones, but at turn 4, you also have to play a Space Stone on another spot. So hopefully you have 4 stones in hand. You play 3 of them on Lockjaw, and you turn the 4th one on the Space Stone on another spot. Then you move Lockjaw that spot, and then on turn 5, you play whatever other stones you've got at that spot. I think it's still going to be a potential issue, but I like it, I guess. I mean, it's definitely not as good, but the real change here is to Quinjet. It now has the reduced cost to a minimum of 1. I talked about this in another video where I talked that this ruins or maybe not ruins, but severely hurts the other Quinjet Quinjet archetypes for other decks. You know, whether you're using it in a bounce type or, you know, a Moon Girl thing or a Demon, where you're trying to get cards cheaper, it's now locked at 1 with Quinjet. It will not go lower than 1. I get that for what it was with Thanos. They even say here, cost reduction is powerful, and Quinjet was one of very few cards capable of reducing multiple cards' energy cost to 0, and they are right with that. While we've enjoyed this interaction in some cases, such as the Hood's Demon, ultimately it creates both an ongoing risk for future design space as well as fueling the dominant Thanos decks of today. This change should be meaningful net reduction in strength through Thanos decks across the board. And that's right. Now, the reason that I sort of get off the soapbox of the minimum of one thing with Quinjet is the future design of the game. I could see where this could potentially restrict too many things for them. I just really liked the aspect that this could make some of these other types stronger. It could make its own archetype to an extent. That's why I was hoping they'd adjust the stones versus Thanos, but maybe they have something down the line that I just don't get or don't know. Red Skull. So this has now changed. It was originally 515. Ongoing enemies would have +2 at the location. So they've lowered it by 2 points. So now it's 513. That by itself is technically a nerf, but then they buffed it by only allowing the enemy cards at this location to have +1 power. Where somebody could have maybe gained 8 power before if they had 4 cards, now it's only 4 power while reducing it 2. You reduce the potential of 4 in a maximum situation and only reduce 2. So it's a buff of 2 in that situation. Now, at some point it evens out there, right? To me, this is like, okay, I'm not sure how this is doing much here. This is strengthening Red Skull in my mind. Because now people are like, well, do I need 0 for Red Skull? Do I need Sauron for Red Skull? Maybe I'll just play Red Skull in a spot they don't have a lot of cards. Cool. And at that point in the game when you're playing them, you're probably, where they're playing. And it's not like they're going to dump a whole bunch of cards on that spot and those extra 2 or 3 points are going to get them to the Red Skull level. I don't get this one. This change is, the developer comment here is this change is singularly aimed at reducing the strength of combining Red Skull with Shuri and Taskmaster, which again, I don't understand how it does, but okay. Outside of these interactions, this change is mostly buffed to the base case usage for Red Skull, giving you 9 or 10 power at a crowded locations rather than 7 or 9. All right, whatever. I just, let me know in the comments below what I'm missing here. I feel like this is more of a buff than a nerf. I'm just saying, throwing it out there. She-Hulk, straight power decrease from 610 to 69. I think it's fine. Again, I don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think that 1 power made her that much more powerful, less powerful. I think, just the ability to drop multiple of her if she's copied, etc. She-Hulk is a key component in the strongest Shuri decks, true, but it sees widespread play in various decks thanks to its strength alongside Sunspot, Wave, and Moon Girl. I agree. We mostly think that's cool, but that she's more powerful than she needs to be for those combos. In addition, we want to encourage playing actively to the 2 locations rather than holding cards for explosive turn 6s. So we're continuing to weaken a few of the best cards for the latter. Okay, I mean, I think it's a nerf. I don't think it's a major thing here. Now this one, holy cow. Holy cow. Now this is the part where we're going to start talking about how Shuri might now be even stronger. Arrow, I think, is probably the biggest nerf change, but more importantly, the biggest, what I think is going to end up being buff to Shuri. So originally it was 5/7, and on reveal, you move all enemy cards. Played this turn to the location that Arrow's at. Basically, if you were winning 2 lanes, you arrow to whatever that 3rd lane is, and cards have to be played there, and that's it. So that you want to focus it on a particular lane. Cosmo is sometimes a counter to that, but it is a card that you'd always worry about if you don't draw Cosmo, etc. The change is it buffs at 1.58, semi-irrelevant in my mind, but on reveal, move the last enemy card played this turn to this location. So now it moves 1 card. And only the last card. And when you're playing against a Shuri deck, what a lot of times people would do, and Shuri players know this, you'd want to suck that card, whatever the last big card is, you'd pull it over to wherever the first big card is. So that way they double up everything on that 1 lane, and you'd play a 1 card or something else that you'd have in the other lanes, and you'd be good because then they'd be massive power or whatever power they have in the spot that they were winning. Now, sometimes that's a situation with Shuri, sometimes that's a situation with many cards, but you'd spend all game sort of building up these 2 lanes, and then if someone was trying to do a big turn 6 play, or turn 5 play, I mean, a lot of times she plays on turn 6, you'd use Arrow to suck all those cards over. Well, now it only does it to 1. Let's see what they say. Arrow is a tricky card for us. The actual game balance for Arrow has been healthy, and she fulfills a vital role in our game by providing interaction, especially against dangerously polarizing cards like Galactus. It's important for Arrow to be versatile and strong in order to be widely playable tech card, but we don't want her pushing the majority of other 5-cost cards out of decks. Unfortunately, that's the behavior we're seeing. Arrow can also be frustrating to see, denying players the option to play their own end games, I suppose. This change seeks to keep Arrow strong where she's needed, foster more competition among 5-cost cards, and add counterplay to make her more fun to play again. I guess. I mean, we'll see. I know a lot of people wanted her to be nerfed. I feel like this is the leader treatment. Honestly, I feel like it's a little too hard. I don't know what the right answer is, so I don't want to be overly critical. This, to me, does sort of feel a little bad for Arrow. And I think for one of the cards that a lot of people really rely on, almost like a release valve similar to Leech, honestly, which, by the way, spoiler, doesn't get touched. Which, again, I think as a release valve probably shouldn't. But anyway, let's keep going. So then Mystique, Absorbing Man, and Taskmaster. Taskmaster is one that's in the Shuri deck, so let's see how they change Taskmaster. These cards now require the previously played card to be in play in order to copy its attributes. Basically, you just need the card in play. So if it got destroyed for some reason or another, these cards will no longer copy what it was before. I think that makes sense. Now, with Taskmaster, that means if somebody Shang-Chi'd something from a Shuri, like when you Shuri, and then you either use She-Hulk, any card above 8 or 9, and they double a Black Panther, Red Skull, if that card got Shang-Chi'd, then Taskmaster can no longer copy it. Okay, that's fine, but the truth is if you're playing Shuri right, you play that first card behind Armor or Cosmo anyway. So that way your opponent is left to guess where to Shang-Chi, and if they play it wrong, or if they've got priority, you're good. So, and that's the way you want to play it. So I don't know if this really changes the Shuri situation, but their comments are, this adjustment is part balance, part matching expectations. A meaningful chunk of Taskmaster's strength in Shuri decks is his ability to copy a card's power, even if it's been destroyed by Shang-Chi or similar. An interaction that somewhat often gets reported as a bug. Hopefully this change means weakened Shuri decks slightly and more cleanly matches players' intuition when they see the cards for the first time. Again, if you're playing Shuri the right way and Red Skull the right way, this isn't going to matter for Shuri deck changes at all. I mean, certainly if you didn't pull your Cosmo or Armor, then yeah, I get it. So it gave you one more opportunity to win. So technically it does weaken it. And now you do need to pull those cards. All right, I suppose. So Morbius and Null. Morbius power no longer updates in hand or in deck, only at location. And before I dive into this, I want to say what the devs have. We previously adjusted Morbius's power to update when he wasn't in play to simplify calculating his future power. However, this has proven a bit confusing in comparison to similar cards, and also unnecessarily, given Morbius is often played very early in the game and isn't very hard to calculate. We're reverting this change, but we expect to add future functionality to Morbius and all cards with ongoing buffs to their own power that communicates their power in order to make these cards simpler to play with. And I certainly get that, when you're looking at Devil Dinosaur or something like that, and you look at at least the way I do it is I look at my hand and I go 2, 4, 6, 8, plus 3. Okay, so that's 11. Okay. And that's how I do it. Now, Null, and who we're going to get to in a second, and Morbius, I could see that where that'd be more difficult. Like, how many cards did I discard? Oh, okay. You have to go up to the corner, you check it. All right, I've just discarded 2, so I get 4. Okay, it's not super difficult. I think this is fine. I got worried a little bit. Is this going to be something where, say you discard 3 cards or 2 cards, and then you play Morbius. Is it a 2-0 still? Or does it take into account everything that's already been done? That's the part where I look at this where I'm going, adjusted Morbius power to update when he wasn't in play to simplify calculating his future power. However, this has proven a bit confusing. And then the specific text they have is power no longer updates in hand or in deck, only at location. So the fact that it says updates, I'm hoping that if you discard 2 or 3 cards and then you play Morbius, that it then shows, but I don't know. I'm a little confused exactly what they're saying here. Let me know in the comments below if I'm just misreading this or not understanding it. Null, it's similar effect here. Null's power still updates in hand, but no longer updates in deck. Now, I like the reasons they give here, spoiler, but basically this was if you use Mr. Negative or anything on him, and then he comes out and he loses a bunch of power if you've already destroyed things. So I like this. Their comments are, the future improvements discussed above will also apply to Null, but until we make them, he will continue to function differently relative to Devil Dinosaur and others. The reason for this is that it's very important for Null players to be able to quickly and precisely calculate his power, which I agree with, because especially since he's a 6-cost card. As a placeholder adjustment, Call will no longer update his power in your deck, so his functionality with Mr. Negative will be the same as his fellow ongoing cards. Notably, he will use his potential power for effects like the peak location until we're able to make our desired improvements. Okay, that's fine. I think it's generally good for null. You want to get as much power of them as possible. And honestly, I hadn't been thinking about using them from negative decks, but I hadn't really combined it with any destroying, so we'll see. Widow's Bite, it's a text-only thing. Essentially, this is confirming and stating that if a Widow's Bite is in your hand, which is when a Black Widow's played against you and it shoots that 0/0 card into you, you can't draw cards either. Meaning, like if you play a Cable or an Agent 13 or a Moon Girl or something like that, and you don't have priority, so your opponent goes, they shoot that Widow's Bite into your hand, and then you play those cards I just mentioned, none of the cards that you would have drawn will come over because the Widow Bite's there. It's actually, a pretty strong mechanic. And then they've got a whole bunch of bug fixes in here. There are a couple of these that I think are worth going through, but I'll just kind of briefly go through these. Cards created by a Sacred Timeline no longer retain power energy alterations when copied to the player's hand. Fine. I honestly, Sacred Timeline to me is, I don't really care for it. I mean, maybe if I played Zoo type decks, I could see it, but fix an issue that would cause some players who had not played for several months before updating to the last build to see battle mode is locked. Fine. You can no longer see unowned cards abilities when toggling the artist view in the collection. You can no longer click objects behind the UI. When inbox messages are long, characters no longer disappear. Fixed another Atlan. This is a big one. Fixed another instance of Atlan's visual effects getting stuck on screen when it activates. That's what Atlan's when it switches the locations on, I think it's turn 3 or something like that. Basically, it would get stuck. It was frustrating. The end round UI and visual effects now plays in the correct order when an opponent retreats. Fine. Sound effects now appear when collecting a card from a collector's reserves. Collecting gold credits from within the card detail view take you properly to shop. X Mansion and Nova Roma now have text when they are featured on the carousel. Great. Jessica Jones visual effects move with her now when she moves to another location. Fine. RAS visual effects no longer goes towards the player who did not receive the card. That was sort of annoying when the spotlights would go towards you. It was like, wait, did I get that? No? All right, fine. Appreciate them fixing that. Fixed an issue that would cause description. And by the way, the next one's the one that's interesting. It's a buff to leech. Fixed an issue that would cause card descriptions to disappear when focusing a card in fast upgrade. All right, nobody cares. Cards that lose their ability due to leech no longer get that ability back if they're pulled back into play by another card. I love that. Leech technically got buffed. It's pretty hilarious. Daredevil visual effects no longer get stuck on screen if a player retreats during turn 5. Claim text UI banners no longer overlap with season caches. Increase the size of some fonts in Thai. PC collection sort filter options no longer disappear. PC improved scroll options. And that's pretty much it. So, and then the steampunk variant stuff and some titles are active. So that's what we got. I think it's sort of hilarious that Shuri to me seems buffed. I think that she's going to be more meta now. We'll see how Thanos is affected by this. I still think that Thanos players can adjust by playing the Space Stone properly in a certain spot and still get those Thanos or the Lockjaw effects. I'm guessing that Quinjet gets removed from that deck. We'll see. It makes sense. So that opens up another opportunity for a different card. Will it help? Will it hurt? We'll see how Thanos players evolve. And then the Leech, who everyone complains about, which I actually technically think needs to be in the game for a release valve. You're still going to have Lockjaws. You're still going to have Thanos pulling them early. That's it. Maybe not as easily, but I still think it's going to be there. So I think Thanos still stays pretty up tip top, but I think Shuri has actually been strengthened from this, mainly through partially that arrow change, because I think that was a big counter. I think you can expect to see Quinjet with Moon Girl a lot more, not that it was already there. And I also think you're going to probably see some Valkyrie start showing up some more to try to counteract some of these Shuris, because I think that's just something that is, potentially helpful. And another card to consider, if that arrow isn't doing it for you and you want to keep cards from playing at a certain location, Juggernaut's going to move every single card from a certain location. Problem is that it's RNG, and it might knock into a spot that maybe you've got Death's Domain, maybe you've got a flooded spot, and you risk putting one of their cards into a spot that you might have already locked down. So I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Come to the Discord, discuss it with us. That is in the description below. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.